Pastor Mark Biltz here from Shaddai Ministries. Thank you again so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe and share. Also, please like this video, and we would love to hear your comments. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye. Because it's not on your notes, I made a slide for you, so you could write it down, but you can follow along with me. In 1 Kings 6:1, it says, "It came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign, in the month Ziph, which is ER, in the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord." So what do we see? We even have an exact count from the very day of Passover they left Egypt to when Solomon's temple, the foundation was laid, and it was 480 years later. Okay, now, you take the year 2023, you add the 430 years to when they left Egypt, then you add the 480 years, we see Solomon's temple foundation was laid in the year 2933. Guess what? That was a Shemitah year. It's also divisible by 7. You see the importance of these things. Okay, because it's divisible by 7, it's 419. So we know the temple was actually laid in a Shemitah year. Okay, here's your next verse. 1 Kings 6:38. "And in the 11th year," he began it in the 4th year, 4 plus 7 is 11. "In the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is Heshvan," okay, that's when the flood, Bul means flood. The flood took place in Heshvan. Okay, which is the 8th month. As you know, Tishri is the 7th month. This is the 8th month. "The house of the Lord was finished throughout all the parts and according to all the fashion of it." So he was 7 years in building it. So guess what? If 2933 was a Shemitah cycle, you add 7 years, the year it was dedicated was also a Shemitah cycle, the 7th year. Okay, so we see that it is a Shemitah year that the temple is finished. But guess what? It is finished in the month of Heshvan, which is the 8th month. What's the 7th month is Tishri. That's when the calendar year begins. So that's why it was in a Shemitah year. But do you know what Solomon does? The building is finished a month after Tishri, but he doesn't dedicate it for an entire year. It just sits empty for a whole year. It's not until the following year that he dedicates the temple. We see a year later in 1 Kings 8:2, "All the men of Israel assembled themselves to King Solomon at the feast in the month Ethanim," which is what? The 7th month. So he waits like 11 months before he actually dedicates the temple. But look what we see in verse 10 through 11. "It came to pass when the priests were come out of the holy place." This is at the Feast of Tabernacles that this happened, guys. When you read it, you'll see it is at the Feast of Tabernacles in the 7th month when the celebration takes place. "And the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so the priest couldn't even stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord." Okay, now, here's where you need to be buckled in, because all of this was to show you this. Here we go. Adam and Eve. Okay, 1948, Abraham is born. 75 years later, he gets the promise. And it's the year 2023, a Shemitah year. Then what do we find? Exodus 12:41, 430 years were they in a strange land. And then after that, Moses, in the year 2453, leads them out of Egypt. And then we find in 1 Kings 6:1, 480 years later, they're laying the foundation of the temple. Okay, that would be the year 2933, a Shemitah year. And then what do we find? 7 years later, the temple is now built. But it's also a Shemitah year. It's the year 2940 from Adam. And then what do we find in 1 Kings 8:2? A year later, this is when the glory falls. Well, guess what? Here is the calendar, and you can see where Tishri is. Elul is the 6th month, 6 o'clock. Tishri 7, Heshvan 8. So he waits an entire year from when the foundation was laid until when the temple was dedicated. Well, guess what? As we know, 2940 was not only a Shemitah year, the following year when the glory fell was 2941, a Jubilee year. So imagine this. The glory falls on the temple in the first year of a Shemitah cycle during the Hakel at the Feast of Tabernacles in the year of Jubilee. And this fall, we begin the New Year 7-year cycle. The tabernacle, the Hakel is taking place, and it is a year of Jubilee, the very same thing that happened back then. That's what's happening this Rosh Hashanah. Okay, now, another verse that's not on your notes that you can put up. Here's what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. And look at Habakkuk, even the prophet himself in Habakkuk 2:3. He says the vision is yet for what? That's Moed. It's going to happen on a feast day. And he says at the end, the Hebrew word ketz means the end, the curtain falls. It shall speak and not lie. Don't look at this as if this isn't the most confusing thing I've ever seen. It says, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and it will not tarry. Is it going to tarry or not? It says it will tarry. Though it tarry, it will not tarry. What that means, the appointed times are dates that are set in concrete. But the reason why no one knows the day of the hour, no one has the authority to speak, God can do whatever he wants. Even though it is set in concrete, if God wants to step in because of someone repenting, he could change it.